My name's Stephen Downey, and you are very welcome to episode 28 of the Mindful Living Guide. In this week's episode, I have the pleasure of speaking to Amanda Delaney, a business coach, mentor, Tedx speaker, and the organizer of We Can and We Will. I recently talked at one of her events about compassion, and I thought it was worth bringing Amanda on the show to chat about her own journey with compassion, and it turned into a beautiful conversation, and we get very deep at times, and we have a great laugh, and I really hope you enjoy this episode. Amanda is an amazing person and it's been inspirational in parts of my own journey, and I really enjoyed this conversation. So sit back and enjoy this week's episode of the Mindful Living Guide. So you're very welcome to this week's episode of the Mindful Living Guide. As I was saying, I am joined by the amazing Amanda Delaney. Amanda is a business mentor, Tedx speaker, founder of We Can, We Will, and friend to many, including myself, and I'm very grateful for that. Over the last few years, Amanda has helped many individuals who love what they do, but might struggle to make a profit from it. She works together to create clear tracks for each of the business to decrease overwhelm and increase confidence and profit. Amanda Delaney, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
What a fabulous intro, Stephen. Thanks very much. Delighted to be here. It's been a pleasure watching you grow your show, and you're consistent in your marketing, your podcast, and everything that you do. So delighted to be here.
I really appreciate that. And something I didn't mention in the introduction as well is that I had the pleasure of joining Amanda and a panel of experts on her at her event there recently, where we talked about compassion. And you may have caught last week's episode where we talked about compassion and the 3 steps to bring compassion into your life. So one of the real reasons I wanted to bring Amanda on the show was to talk more about the event and why compassion is so important to business people. So could we start by just talking about this amazing event that you had recently, Amanda?
We Can and We Will Talk is an event I've been running for the last 4 years. I run it consistently every 6 weeks now online since the pandemic, which is phenomenal because we can reach people far and wide. I never usually give a topic. And this time, in your gut, I'm sure your listeners are familiar with the gut instinct, tuning in, listening to your gut. I'd had a personally challenging year this year where I'd taken time out to work on my own personal development, which was much needed. And what I found was compassion was something that really helped me get through. But what I was hearing from the business owners in the community that I would lead and be a huge part of was that there was an awful lot of negativity around their self-talk, around their business. Maybe they put on weight, maybe their circumstances at home have changed. I know in this house we've now got 2 of us full-time at home working, so there's no breaks. So there was lots of different circumstances, whether it was relationships, weight, finances, business goals, stuff that maybe hadn't been met, health-wise and all that maybe gone off track. And people were definitely lacking self-compassion and compassion for close relationships within their circle. And that was what I was hearing, Stephen. So for that reason, I listened in and I said, this time I'm going to do something different. I'm going to invite people who are experts in the field of compassion to maybe teach others, or maybe even wake them up, make them aware of their self-talk being so negative, and teach them how to deal with that, and maybe some tips on how to address that, whether it be with self or others, to get through, move forward.
And I think you hit the nail on the head by organising this, because the feedback from the night was just phenomenal from everybody. And just, it wasn't even like there was a massive workshop, it was just showing people the mirror and saying, listen, this is how we speak to each other. This is how we speak to, this is how we speak to ourselves. And I think that, I found phenomenal that the impact that I had on people. I said, just, I never thought about that. I never thought about, geez, I am so hard. But every single person agreed about that little voice in their head, that when things go wrong, they can just be harder. And I think is exactly what you said over the last year or so, that because there's been so much change, that people's standards have to change. They can't be performing at the same level, and they can't expect to get the same results. So we need to bring that bit of compassion into our life. And so I think it's, and you've also, I know you mentioned yourself that over the last year that compassion came very strong into your journey. And I know there was a massive change a few months ago, and I think there was something, I think you said it's something that had a grip over you for the last 30 years that you were able to kick. Amazing story, and very, very proud to hear this as well. Can you tell us about that?
Well, for 32 years, at least 15, if not 20 plus times a day, I would go to my pocket, my bag, my car, wherever they were. I would put my hand on my cigarette and I would light up. Yes, okay, there was some of them that maybe I enjoyed them. There was many others I was subconsciously doing this habit. And there was plenty of guilt and shame, and these were going against everything that my lifestyle stood for. Being a fitness instructor, I'm mad into this life, living this life, and here I was, 15 to 20 plus times a day, lighting up something that could potentially, I know everything can kill you, but potentially kill me. And earlier this year, I decided that I was at an event, a huge weekend event, and the speakers were talking about deep work and personal development. I said, jeepers, I barely scratched the surface here. I said, something's going to give this year in my, I want to master this or something. I just got to shift. And I found myself then in March burying my mum from the funeral, then having COVID. We buried my mum because she couldn't breathe. Basically, she had no oxygen. She had emphysema and lung disease and heart stuff going on for many years. None of that over those years, Stephen, wanted me, made me want to give up.
Yeah.
I found myself through the personal development work I was doing, since January, I decided, right, I'm going to work on myself deep here. I know Mom's not going to last forever. I want to be in a good space when this is going to happen.
Yeah.
So she passed, we got COVID. But there was other symptoms coming up for me. There was a strangulation around my neck, which I wasn't sure whether it was something I'd erupted doing the personal development work or what it was. There was a lot of health stuff going on. Then I started out of the blue, not being able to breathe at nighttime. Just at nighttime. I would sit down about 8 o'clock in the evening and I couldn't breathe. I was going to the doctors, they were giving me inhalers, and this fear took over me. What if you have to pick up the phone and tell your sisters and the people you care about that you now have emphysema, but we've just buried Mam from? The fear of I could visualize this phone call having to happen. I know from listening to another young woman in the shops, a manager in the shops where I used to go for my cigarettes, that she got this emphysema and that she stopped smoking, but she'd always have emphysema. That once you had it, it was for life. Your lungs were damaged. And then I knew this has to happen. These have to go. I went, and fear erupted. Oh my goodness, the stories in my mind, the self-talk, you're this, you're emotionally attached, the stories I told myself. This is going on since you're 14. This is all attached to your self-esteem. It was getting like a monster. But I knew they have to go. They have to go. So I'm dealing with doctors. I'm dealing with my mindset stuff, and I'm saying, no, they have to go. So I'm reaching out to other people for help, thinking, help me, help me, help me. I have to get, if there's a trigger here, somebody help me, help me. Years ago, I'd had hypnosis for this. And when I went to that guy, I started to have old patterns of behavior, low self-esteem, suicidal thoughts. So I went to see this guy. This is 4 years on, and I'm making the decision. They're going. I go, I reach out to get help. I go for one meeting. He didn't hypnotize me. 2 weeks later, I'm having suicidal thoughts. That's how deep the fear was attached to me giving these up. And I said, I'm glad you didn't hypnotize me, because I would have thought it was the hypnosis, but it's the deep embedded fear of me giving up this addiction. That's how deep it was.
It's like a clutch. It's like a crutch that you have that you're just constantly going back to. And that is unbelievable how deep it was. And you've worked through that now. And I'd say it's an amazing feeling now to be on the other side of that then. And to know.
we're so powerful. Human beings are so powerful. Every Wednesday I woke up crying, didn't know why, I just kept crying. And then I went to see this guy again. I said to him, how fast can this happen? Because other stuff was coming up that I knew I dealt with. And I said, this is nonsense. My mind is playing tricks here. I need to quit. And on that weekend, I came across the Audible Alan Carr book, which I'd read the book before. I went out for a walk. I put it on my head, and I knew the shift was coming. I knew when you decide that it's done, it's done. When I did that, if you watch my TEDx talk, when I did it with the drink and when I did it with my weight, it was done like that. This time it didn't happen the way that it wasn't pain-free. It was months of tears and pain and kicking and screaming and fears and everything else. But the point I'm making is, in all of that, I searched, I surrendered where I was. I had to accept where I was. And I asked for wisdom. And when I sought wisdom, I found compassion. I learned about compassion. And it wasn't until I started to have compassion for where I was and stop being in a hurry to fix it, stop wanting to fix how it was, and just be kind and say, it will happen. You're beautiful the way you are. And if all that compassion came in.
Wow.
And that's why I was so, it was quick then in the end. It was over Tuesday night. I had 2 in the box. The breathing thing had started again. This was a month later. And I said, I'm done. I'm not waiting till Friday. These have to go from my life. That was 10, 11 weeks ago.
Wow. And I can just see and there's so many traits from mindfulness that it's actually coming true here that I'm seeing, like the acceptance, to be able to just sit with it, and the compassion side of just
that was the hardest part, was to accept.
Just sit with the uncomfortableness. And you mentioned there actually about your TEDx talk as well. And I only looked over the weekend recently again, just in preparation for chatting to you. And that was an incredible journey. And you're extremely honest about the journey that you've had, from the level of self-doubt and self-criticism that you had at the time, and the work that you've done over there. Do you want to take us back to those journey to maybe, I don't know if you want to mention that first house that you had, and those famous pots and pans, and what happened?
Oh, if I can take you back. And I suppose, as one of my sisters said to me when I was facing this, to becoming a non-smoker, she said, this was actually your first crutch when you were really low. So that person who picked up the cigarette was only in their school uniform around the back of the lane. And that was really my first memories of self-loathing, no self-worth, not fitting in, not belonging, never knowing, am I here? Should I be there? Who am I? And it was really painful time for me to be living. And I was very young. So from the age of of 13, 14, I became aware of this deep sadness, crying for no reason. Mom asked me, what's wrong? Did something happen? No, just deep, deep sadness. And I think at that stage, I began to bury and just put emotions down, like literally bury them. Never knew how I was feeling, never looked to see how I was feeling, and just completely ignored emotions. I remember not knowing, I was in school. I was quite intelligent, as in I liked to get my work done, but yet I was hanging around with bullies, okay, the cool kids. Yet my homework was always done and my copies were neat and tidy. And I'd look over at the other girls, the good girls, and I just didn't know where I fit in. I knew I couldn't be over here being slagged, but I didn't like being over here either. And with the result, at 14, I said, Mom, I'm leaving. I'm giving up the school thing, because I was in so much pain in there. So that's when I would have masked things with cigarettes, with bullying, with clothes, anything I could to fit in at that age. And then when I left school, of course, I got a full-time job. I got an apprenticeship, plenty of money in my pocket, adult child living now in an adult world, opened the doors to the pub, to the alcohol, to the adult world. But I was still a hurt child. So you imagine, I'm feeling emotional now, Stephen. You can imagine this child who's learned to numb emotions, who's learned to people please, to now sit in the pub and get absolutely hammered, to be in relationships that were absolutely no good for her, to wake up in places that She didn't even know where she was. She's a child trapped in an adult world. Smiling, laughing soul of the party, meeting up with men that were totally the wrong age. Like at the time when I look back at those relationships, lethal. Ended up going out with another guy who was an alcoholic, trying to save him. I remember chasing him. Oh my goodness. Like when I look back, a nice guy, but so many problems. My friends used to say, Amanda, can you not see?
You wanted to help.
I wanted to help everyone so I didn't have to look within. I ended up buying a house with him. There was loads of fighting and everything going on. Eventually, we got the keys of the house. The day we got the keys of the house, I went up that night. We had a huge row, and I walked away from the house the next morning with my brand new pots and pans that I brought up the night before. And I never looked back. I said, no, I can't stay here. Like, I can't stay here.
And that's exactly a trait that when I look back at the talk, and because I'm fanatical about public speaking, I absolutely adore it, and I love looking at teams going through stuff. And the team that I saw right there was that you took responsibility for your life. You made a decision there and then, and we all talk about white knights coming and saving us, and you do have a white knight in your life, and the most amazing person, and a great friend of mine as well, your husband Ian. And but I think the white knight that came along was you. That it was you that came along and took responsibility from there. And we've talked about the dark days and that, but let's talk about the differences made once you started taking that responsibility for yourself, and the difference you've seen in you as a person coming through it all.
Yeah, you know, it's phenomenal. At that stage, I knew nothing about personal development back then, but over the years, I heard about The Secret, and then I got involved in a different business that opened up the world to personal development and goal setting and all, a whole new world. And sometimes I forget the old world. I didn't know about anything about mindfulness or awareness or any of this language. Yeah. You know, I was just living asleep, should I say. But yeah, it's just brought a whole new world. And now when I look back on times like that and I say take responsibility, I see how brave and courageous I was. I didn't feel it at the time. I just knew something had to shift, and I'd say yes to opportunities and stuff. And it was brave and it was courageous. But it also comes with the downside, Stephen, which is here you are doing all these wonderful things, but you're still a smoker. So you haven't taken responsibility there. So who are you to be talking about responsibility? Because we do pinhole. We look for tiny things that aren't right in it. And it's like I say, I work with a lot of coaches and leaders and everything else. And they sometimes procrastinate in their work they're doing because they feel like they have to have everything figured out. How dare they show up if there's anything wrong in their lives? And if life has showed me anything, and in the business I'm in has showed me anything, that, you know, done is better than perfect, and taking those steps forward, open tiny keys, open big doors. I think Jerry Duffy says that. But it's those tiny steps that you say yes to. It's being open and vulnerable about your imperfections that helps people warm to you. No, not one of us on this planet is perfect. Yes. And, you know, I've huge respect for someone who says, well, this is where I was, and this is where I am right now. And that shows the characteristics of a person. So I suppose my message is, if you are right now at the moment honing in with your microscope on all your imperfections, I'm going to ask you, like we've spoke about here, is to take out the microscope or the huge big feather duster of compassion. I'm handing it to you right now. And every time you look at your imperfections, I want you to love yourself even more. To say, I accept that I'm not perfect, and I love myself anyway. Because then you can move forward. Then you can take the action without the criticism. Now I'm talking to myself here again.
Yeah, and often that's what we do. When we're trying to help other people, we often find that inner voice is the voice that we wanted to hear ourselves. And I find by helping other people, we can open our own doors as well sometimes. And there's a phrase, I know a previous guest, actually, Nuala O'Connor, from season 1 actually was on, and she, I've done a lot of work with Nuala as well, and she does tapping, and she has kind of affirmations, as she says, and it's like you would start on something, say like you're saying about that imperfection, and it's like you talk about that, but then you come into, even though this blah 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 is happening, I love myself, even though, and it's just about accepting, yes, it is, it's not all perfect, but even though that happens,
I've done that work with Denise Brannick, and it's powerful. It is powerful. It's that acceptance.
Just accepting it. And we're kind of briefly touching on some of the people that you've helped over the years, and I have to say, and I'm going to put my hands up always and say, that one person that has helped me on my journey to be where I am is you, Amanda. And you gave me a great opportunity in 2018. We'd only met at a workshop, and I had this dream of talking, and I'm getting emotional actually here, actually saying to you, it shows what bubbles up when we talk about these things. But I had this dream, and I didn't know how. Like I always talk about people. They say, "Oh, this is where I want to be," and it's so far away. It's so far away. And my dream at the time to talk to Tedx, and that was so far away. There's no way I would have got to Tedx unless I had taken those steps that I had along the way. And one of the major steps I took was actually standing up in front of people and telling my story, and telling these people who were all business leaders. And for me, I had everybody on this pedestal around me saying, yeah, geez, who am I to come and talk to you guys? And I realized that just sharing your story and allowing yourself to be vulnerable inspires so many people. And you've through your own network of events, that you've inspired so many people over the years just to be authentic in their business as well. That I find, I know you've had this experience in the past before as well, but we go to these business networks and it's all about your 60-second pitch and who are you and all this kind of thing and the bravado. Whereas I've always found from day one with We Can, We Will, that it's about the family. It's about being honest and just saying, oh, this is where I am. And do you know what? I could help you. And it's all this kind of beautiful network. And I know you're starting next week again. I've been on it before, the 5-day challenge.
Video challenge. Yes, it's storytelling.
It is. And I would absolutely encourage, if you're listening to this and you want to bring out the story in your business, you want to just bring out that love and passion that you have for your business, but you don't know where to start, I definitely would encourage you, and I'm going to have all the details in the show notes how to connect to Amanda, but I would definitely encourage you to connect in with Amanda, have a chat about joining this. It's a 5-day challenge where we do videos and we get out of our comfort zone. And it's actually, do you know what, something I haven't talked to you about, it is comfort zones. And I know you're a big advocate of stepping outside that zone, but we often, when we talk about comfort zones, people think it's, like I said about Tedx, it's something miles away and it's way out of my comfort zone. But can we talk about just the comfort zones and those and incremental steps of getting out of comfort zones? Because some people think when they take on challenges like this, that it's where you are on day 5, not where you are on day 1, and they think it's a massive
100%. jump. What always amazes me, whether it's a video challenge or inside my business academy, what always amazes me is that the tiny little steps that people take, when I watch the growth, and I put, I'm teaching marketing and all of this, but the biggest thing I see is the growth. The biggest thing I see is the personal growth in people. Like on the 5-day video challenge, it is done in a safe space. You can only go live in the group if you want to. So your safe space can be you can keep your box as small, or you can stretch it as big as you want to. And that's the beauty about comfort zones. And especially when you're working with me, I'll never push someone off a cliff that's not ready. Do you know, that kind of way? So there's gentle encouragement and push, but as well as that, a lot of people come in and they don't even have the skills. They're so afraid of video that they've not even taken the time to learn how to press the right buttons to do it. So there's people right there. That's the stretch, is to press the go live button. For other people, it's to, really work and develop their story techniques because I give them tasks. And for other people, it may be that they're ready to, oh my goodness, I'm going to go out live on my own page this time. That's why people come back to the video challenge, because the comfort zone for them is stretched each time, whatever level they're ready to stretch at.
And I think Moira Geraghty actually had a great diagram back in the event recently, in the Compassion event, about comfort zones and about, imagine one great way, and I hope she doesn't mind me repeating this, I think it's a great bit of advice, that if you imagine your comfort zone as a little box around yourself, and you're not trying to get outside your box to somewhere else, but just draw a slightly bigger box around yourself. And maybe there's a small little action that you can take. Maybe there's something tiny little action that you could take today just to stretch that box. And it says a word that's just come over the conversation again and again is stretching. And I know that you mentioned Jerry Duffy as well earlier on in the conversation. And Jerry has a fantastic TEDx talk just about stretching, just about pushing yourself that extra bit further and further and further. And Amanda, there's a question that I ask everybody on the show, and I wanted to ask you as well, from your perspective about I always talk about mindful living, and doesn't just encompass mindfulness. There's so many different levels to living your life in the most mindful way. So when I say the phrase mindful living to you, what does that mean in your world and on your journey?
I tell you, it's a great question, because I've looked at this, and there's certain situations. So when you look at someone, you wish that you could help them see and change. So for me, it's been awake, Stephen. It's being awake. It's actually seeing, oh gosh, I have an issue here. I need to help myself here. I could be better there. I need to find a way, like what I did this year, right? It's the opposite of being asleep. It's the opposite of saying, I know there's an issue, but I'm just going to sit here angry and pissed off at the world, and I'm going to stay bitter. And, and that's hard. I'm watching somebody doing that at the moment.
Yeah.
And for me, mindful living is, oh, I see that that's not right. Maybe I could look at a way of making that better. And it's about forgiveness. Always had a huge forgiving heart. When I look at people who are holding on to stuff, it's like, I feel so sad. So for me, being mindful is being mindful of, yeah, I could be better there. Maybe I need to work on that, find a way, and letting go of what does not serve us anymore, whether that's forgiving ourselves or forgiving other people. Let go of the baggage that you're carrying around that is not serving. I'm mad into me hiking now at the moment, and there's no way up those mountains would I put stuff in my bag that I am not going to use on the mountain, because I'm not carrying that weight. I'm certainly not going to do that in my life.
That is an amazing analogy. And you did actually, I didn't mention, actually, you did a great hike up through the Dublin mountains recently in aid of Bardstown. Unfortunately, you got a surprise behind two trees at one point.
You know that song, if you go down to the woods today, beware people don't jump out of trees at you.
Oh, for anyone that's not aware, myself and another great friend of mine, Sue Masterson, we're part of a group called Mind, Body and Mountains, and we meet up every now and again. And it just so happened that the trail that we were on cross paths with the trail that Amanda was on, and myself and Sue decided to hide behind a tree and surprise them on their journey through. And it was a beautiful day for us as well. The views around Dublin were just phenomenal. But I could see that every person that I saw coming towards us in those blue t-shirts that day, they were smiling so brightly, and they were just so happy to get out. And I just think your analogy you just said just now about not watch what you put in your bag, because if I'm going up a mountain, I don't want rocks in my bag. It's amazing way to explain it. And I think that will probably hit home for a lot of people about what rocks are you carrying in your bag. I remember, and sorry, I don't want to harm the point. I a few years ago, actually, I did a workshop over retreat with Pat Divley in Galway, and one of the exercises actually was go out to the sea and get a big rock, find some really nice rock, and I had a big huge one. And the idea actually was that we'd write all those negative thoughts, all those negative things on it. So I call mine Negative Nigel, and it was a lot of weight to carry around, but I was very happy to throw it away back to the sea at the end of the weekend. And listen, Amanda, I'm going to leave our conversation on that. If people want to get in touch with you, I'm going to have everything on the show notes. But just briefly, what's the best way to connect with yourself, and if you want to join our video challenge or your video challenge, or say next week as well.
Facebook. Facebook is my office, Amanda Delaney. Google my business, you'll find me there. AmandaDelaney.ie is the website, which I'm very
Great.
proud to say I stretched my comfort zone and I'm learning how to maintain it myself, which is great.
Brilliant.
So Amanda Delaney, I'm sure Google
Yeah.
will send you my
Just
way.
look it
I'm
up.
all over social media.
Yeah. So listen, Amanda, as always, I love chatting to you, and I learn something new every single time. And that idea about asking you what rocks are you carrying up your mountain is going to be stuck with me for a very long time, and I really appreciate it. So, Amanda Delaney, thank you so much for being a guest on the Mindful Living Guide and for being such an important part of my journey. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Stephen.
So there you have episode 28 of the Mindful Living Guide. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Amanda. She's an amazing person, and she always has those nuggets of information that come out, especially like that one about what rocks are you carrying in your rucksack. It's something that we all subconsciously do. It's we're walking around with so much from our past that we will benefit from letting go. And that's a lovely little analogy that she had there. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen, as always, and for sharing the episode. It's great to see that it's been growing from strength to strength. Even after our break over the summer, the listeners are still coming week after week. So thank you very much. My name is Stephen Downey, and this has been the Mindful Living Guide.